My name is Stephen Costa. I'm with Microsol Resources. As Annalena pointed out, I'm the BIM and infrastructure specialist here at Microsol Resources, and today's webinar will be on the new features of Civil 3D 2016, plus a little sprinkling of other odds and ends that I thought would be worthwhile sharing. A couple of housekeeping items. Just if you have any questions during the presentation, be sure to use the QA or chat box located in your WebEx interface. My colleague Roger Liucci, who is on the call, will be monitoring those questions, and then we can sort of have a recap at the end and address any questions that may have come up during the presentation regarding any of the new features or, frankly, any of the features you see in Civil 3D that you'd like to know a little bit more about. I may, during the presentation, ask a question, just raise a hand. You'll see in the interface there's a little hand icon, and I can just see via the attendee list how many of you are raising your hands for the question I have. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. So most of the presentation today will be inside of Civil 3D. I do have a handful of PowerPoint presentation slides just to kind of go over or present an overview of the things that you'd be expecting to see inside of Civil 3D 2016. And we'll start with a little bit about the user experience. Autodesk has been, over the last few years, refining a bit of the way that AutoCAD and Civil 3D interfaces and UIs work. There's a couple of things that they've added from the wish list. Amongst them is the ability to drag and drop some of your layouts. Those of you who do a heavy amount of production work would have noticed that in the previous versions of AutoCAD and Civil 3D, your layout tabs, when they were bunched at the bottom, made it very difficult for you to drag and drop to the ones that were hidden. So that's been resolved. A couple of minor things, such as the gallery view system variable. For instance, if you're inserting a block, and I'll be sure to show you this, if you're inserting a block and you click on the drop-down, you'll see that you can either have a list format or a gallery view, which is a little icon representing what your, or I should say a thumbnail of what your block represents. Those sorts of things have been modified. And then last but not least, the UI Finder, which I'll give an opportunity to show you, is if you're learning Civil 3D or you're not really experienced with it, you'd see that the UI Finder helps you locate tools by just dropping a big red-orange arrow where the tool is on the Civil 3D interface. Next is the DWG file format. I think myself included, I would have probably bet money that 2016 would have included a new DWG file format, since historically every 3 releases Autodesk changed it. But I would have been on the losing end of that bet because that's not the case. So the DWG file format remains the same, 2013. Also to note is that Civil 3D objects from 2013 to 2016 are interchangeable. So in the event that you're working on projects that are spanning multiple years and multiple releases, you can get by with relatively minor inconveniences. But for the most part, object interchange has been pretty set through all those releases that I mentioned. Coordination model and point include tool enhancements. I'll go into a little bit about those, but those simply reflect some of the AutoCAD changes, the ability to add a coordination model that is a Navisworks file, NWC or NWD, into your CAD drawing for coordination is a new feature. And some of the point cloud tools that were part of some of the labs that you may have participated in last year, allowing you to select faces and things like that, have also been included. So along with that, there are some AutoCAD changes that I think are noteworthy. So I'll take a break from the PowerPoint slide and just talk a little bit about some of the AutoCAD features that are part of 2016. Feel free to go to our resources page on our website. My colleague Tim Kramer did a What's New in AutoCAD 2016, where he went and expansively talked about all the new features, well, maybe not all, but probably 90% of them, in great detail. So if you're curious about not only what Civil 3D has to offer, but what some of the new features in AutoCAD are, be sure to check out that video. Now, a couple of ones that I mentioned while we were in the slide, there's this gallery view system variable, and if I go ahead and type it again, and if I go ahead and I just press F1 on my keyboard, you'll see it brought up to the help page. Here's the system variable that you may want to take a look at. It depends on how you like working. It sets whether or not the gallery views are listed or thumbnail view. And an example of that would be when you go to insert a block whether or not you see a list here or you see a thumbnail is going to depend on what you're selecting in that system variable. All right. A couple of the other AutoCAD ones that I find were particularly interesting, especially for engineering work, is the ability to now actually select the geometric center of object using your object snaps. So you can see here that I'm displaying the object snaps settings where you can toggle endpoint, midpoint, etc. You'll see that there's now one for geometric center. So with that toggled, you can see that as I hover over these geometric shapes, right, square, pentagon, hexagon, octagon, it's locating those geometric centers, right? This is especially useful if you have a very complex shape, right? So imagine that you had, and those of you who don't know this command, be sure to write it down. It's a mouthful, but LineWorks shrink wrap allows me to create some complex geometry by shrink wrapping a series of objects. Suppose I needed to find out the geometric center of that. All I'd have to do is toggle on that object snap, and I would be able to grab that right away. So pretty cool stuff, pretty easy to use. Next is the Rev Cloud. Autodesk has made some additions to the way that command works and added some new features. You can see here that I've launched the command, and I can toggle a number of settings. I'll go ahead and I'll just double check my object length for minimum arc and maximum arc. And I'm going to go ahead and just select object, and I'm going to go ahead and just choose that object, and it's converted that to a Rev Cloud very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and also now relaunch the command, and I'm going to go ahead and choose Modify, and you can see, oops, let me go ahead and just do that again. Let me choose that object, and I'm going to go ahead and now just do a quick modification to that, and you can see that all I need to do is toggle on my nearest, and launch the command, modify, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw something like this, right, to modify. And you can see now it lets me crop out the part that I would like to remove. So very easy to use, and it'll prompt me whether or not I want to reverse the direction. I'll say no. So great for making revisions to any of the construction documentations you have. Also new to AutoCAD 2016, as it applies to Civil 3D as well, is the Smart Dimension tool. So by launching the Smart Dimension tool, I can go ahead and just dimension without having to choose the type of dimension that I want, right? So I can go ahead and drop in radii, centers, arc lengths, and even angles very rapidly. All right, so definitely get used to using that tool. It'll let you go through and do some of the monotonous work that dimensioning really typically entails rather quickly. And then last but not least, one of the Augie wish list items was the ability to throw on a text border. So you can see here that I have a text object, and I can enable a frame directly from the Properties dialog window. All right, so pretty minor things in the grand scheme, but also very useful tools that allow you to go through and make changes to your CDs very rapidly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that up. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my PowerPoint. And we'll talk about what I consider the meat and potatoes of what's new in Civil 3D. And it really falls into these 5 bulleted items here. And there's a handful, 2 more slides that cover some of the odds and ends as well. But I'll talk a little bit about each of these bullets, and then we'll go through and take a look at a demo for some of these. Starting at the top, you can see here that the ability to create a Civil 3D surface from a point cloud has now been integrated within Civil 3D and is available through the UI. So effectively what you can do now is attach a recap file as an X reference, similar to the way you would do a drawing file, an image file, a PDF. And you can use a little algorithm that is built in to generate a Civil 3D surface. Now, the whole step itself, depending on the complexity of the point cloud, can take a few minutes, not a very long time, but probably longer than I'd like to do live for this demo. So you'll see that I have already created one, and I'll show you the steps to get there. Next comes the subassembly loop support. Now, I'm going to go ahead and, if you bear with me, I'm going to take a look at the list of the participants. Now, how many of you, if you can just check out your interface, you're going to should see a little hand icon. How many of you are actively using the subassembly composer? I'll give everybody a second to A, find that, and maybe B, go ahead and select that. I'd like to just get a quick look. Okay, I can see. Great. Some of you are throwing up your hands. That's good. Now, the Subassembly Composer, for those of you who don't know, is a tool that lets you create your own subassemblies within Civil 3D. So aside from the extensive library that is part of the subassemblies that come out of the box, you can create your own brand new ones. Now, one in particular that was introduced for this release is the ability to do loop support. Now, a loop would be something that you'd like to do repetitively. So in the case of those of you who know a little bit about programming, sort of like an if-then statement. So you can continue to do a particular subassembly for as long as you need, or until you find, the dialog window's in the way. Thank you. Yeah, but it blocks out the rest. Thank you. Roger just pointed out that I had the participants dialog window open, and it was blocking some of the views. So going back to the subassembly loop support, so the ability to loop through, let's say, a subassembly over and over again, if you want to create a stepped surface, for example, and creating if-then statements is now a new feature. So I'll give you an example of that. The ability to create 3D solids or AutoCAD solids from Civil 3D elements isn't really new, but it was only part of the Production Enhancements 2015 pack. So those of you who weren't on subscription or didn't download it didn't have access to it. But now it's part of the basic Civil 3D interface, and I'll give you an example of that. Exclusionary catchments, the ability to create catchments within other catchments. So think of an overall catchment area. And the ability to segregate out another section, another catchment, is a new feature. And then last but not least, the ability to target alignments in a corridor by layer. Those of you who have done some heavy amount of corridor modeling know that you could, in previous releases, target a polyline and select it by layer, but now the ability to do an alignment by layer is available as well. So if you create a series of alignments and you use a suffix, for instance, to specify, C-row-offset, you can go ahead and use these for targeting pretty effectively. All right? So with that, rather than go to the next slide, I'm just going to go ahead and just take a look at each one at a time. So let me go ahead and organize my workspace, and let's go to Civil 3D. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss the help window. And let's talk a little bit about the first one on the list, which was point cloud information. All right. Now, to give you an example and to show you how easy it is for you to go ahead and do this, right, I actually created a data set that was readily available online. So what I did was I fired up Chrome, went to the, if I can spell it correctly, went to the Westchester IS website. And on here, I was able to find, through their interactive mapping, information for, or I should say, the data warehouse, some of their LiDAR. All right, so I went to the interactive map in Westchester County, and if you haven't been to this website and you do a good amount of work in Westchester County, this is definitely something you want to look into. So I went and I just randomly chose a location, and through the additional data map, I turned on the environmental section some of the LiDAR. And you'll see that here, once it refreshes my screen, you can see the tiled views for my LiDAR. And essentially, all I have to do is choose an area, and I can actually download that tile. Now, that comes in as a .las file. So what I wanted to do was translate that using Autodesk Recap. And you can see here that this is the result of the file that I downloaded, right? So you can see a pretty high-resolution laser scan of, I believe this was Sleepy Hollow. You can see here the Metro North track. You can see some buildings, some trees, etc. Now, effectively, if we wanted to use this information inside of Civil 3D to generate a surface, we could. So by going back into Civil 3D, I'll just show you the steps I took to get there. First was, like I said, processing the information in Recap. I then went and attached a point cloud to my Civil 3D drawing. I think a quick little side note to say that this is where you'd also attach your coordination model. That's your Navisworks or NWC file, which I'll try to give you a little show and tell later at the end. In either case, once I go ahead and I attach my point file, you can see here that it's going to be looking for a Recap point cloud project or point cloud scan. So I went and I just simply selected the one that I had generated from the laser scan that I downloaded off the Westchester website, processed that information, and end result was this Recap file, which I saved and brought into Civil 3D. All I needed to do then was simply select that that point cloud, and you'd see that there's the ability to create a surface from point cloud inside of Civil 3D. Now, the dialog window that I'll just step you through is pretty straightforward. Those of you who have used Civil 3D for a while now shouldn't have any trouble just going right through this. You can name your surface and set a style. You can choose which point clouds you'd like to add to the surface, right? There could be instances where you grab multiple tiles or you have multiple scans from a project depending on how many days required to shoot that point cloud. Whatever the case, you can select multiple point clouds or you can select just one. In this case, I've just selected the one that I have in there. And then last but not least, you have your various filter methods. Now, the little interface or the little icon on the right will kind of tell you more or less what it's going to try to do in order to filter the point cloud information to give you something that looks more or less correct. Now, the planar method is probably, as you can see from the icon, just sort of approximates or averages out all the point clouds. The no filter, if you do this, make sure you take a nice long lunch break and come back, because that's probably how long it'll take to process a point cloud like this, because it'll literally show every nook and cranny that that point cloud has, which in most cases is probably not necessary. But what we'd like to do, and which I already did, is use this Kriging interpolation method, which analyzes the surface and tries to give you the best approximation of just the ground data. So if I click on Create Surface, Civil 3D would process that information in the lower right-hand corner here. And after, I think it was about 10 minutes, it gave me a surface, which I will now go ahead and select. And let me actually break out of that. Let me unselect and reselect, since I didn't want to get the point cloud as well. And if I go to Object Viewer and I give my screen a second to refresh, you can see here what it's generated from that information, right? And I have my level of detail on so that my computer doesn't freak out too much. Now, there are going to be probably little areas where you may want to refine the area. I think there was an abutment here, and it did a fairly okay job of showing me where that is. But pretty simply, from information I pulled online, I had a surface that I could start working with. Obviously, you would still need additional survey data and things like that to really start the design process. But for a quick conceptual study, this is definitely the way to go. All right. So I'll go ahead and close that up. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the next drawing, which was something I wanted to show you for the Subassembly Composer. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this other than showing you a completed project. And what I'd like to do is just start by launching the Subassembly Composer, which I don't have a shortcut for here in Windows 8. So I will look for the 16 version. There it is. And I'm going to go ahead and open up a file that comes with, or I shouldn't say comes with Civil 3D, but is available via Autodesk's website. So if I go to what's new, you'll see here that there's a loop geometry example of what they mean. Now, if you don't know how to get some of these sample loops, just Google Autodesk Civil 3D Subassembly Composer samples. And you'll see that there's some sample PKT files for the Subassembly Composer that you can go ahead and download so you can start playing around with this if you're really that interested. Now, going back to the Subassembly Composer, you'll see that there's this new loop geometry feature that allows me to go ahead and loop a series of subassemblies based on a criteria. Now, you can see here, if we're creating sort of a stepped surface, right, X amount of feet down and right, from a given insertion point, I can loop through those as much as I want. And you can see here that for my target parameter, which is a surface, as I step through those, right, you'd get, as that surface goes down, it'll step through as many times as I say. That particular loop, I think, comes with 10. So if I go with 3, you can see that it steps through 3, and then it goes into a section where it just finds daylight at a particular slope, right? So very useful for creating these types of geometries that you wouldn't normally be able to do with a typical subassembly. Now, the example of that would be if I went and I chose this corridor that I already modeled using that, and let me just show you quickly, just a subassembly, or I should say an assembly with a typical road, some curb, a sidewalk, and then that loop. And you can see here that if I bring up my section editor, and I step through those, you can see here is what that looks like. And as I go through, if I go back to the beginning and I just step through slowly, you should see there in the lower right-hand corner, as I move up grade, it's stepping through and generating that based off that loop geometry. All right? So pretty cool stuff. I mean, this sort of thing would normally have taken hours to do manually. You can now get through this fairly quickly with a predetermined subassembly that steps through the things you'd like. All right? So what I'm going to do is just close this drawing and open up the next one, which was the ability to create solids from Civil 3D. I think I set it up here in number 7. Now, this is pretty straightforward. What I'll do is show you a finished product and show you how I got there, right? So you can see here I created a solid geometry from a Civil 3D surface. It's got a little bit of thickness, right? So you can use this for visualization. You can import this into Infoworks. You can import this into Revit. Whatever application you need this in, you can pretty much get it, because now it's a simple AutoCAD 3D solid, right? You can export to OBJ, IFC, whatever it is that you need. Now, in order for us to get there, we just need to create a simple surface. So let me just start off a brand new drawing and just insert in the land XML file. And I think I'm going to go ahead and go with this existing ground surface here. Press OK. Civil 3D will think for a second, and it'll generate your typical Civil 3D surface, right? Nothing new here. You can see there's my roadway, berm, ground, etc. Now, when you actually select a Civil 3D surface under the surface tools, and the drop-down that's labeled extract from surface, you'll see the ability to extract out the solid. Again, nothing new for those of you who might have been using the production productivity pack for 2015, but now it's just part of the UI, so you don't need to include that additional productivity pack. So I'm going to go ahead and select that tool, and you can see that I can go ahead and create a solid from a surface at a given depth, so I can say 10 feet. I can move it down to a fixed elevation, or I can create a solid between two surfaces. At the end of today's presentation, I'll give you a very quick preview of the Geotechnical module in Hobase SI from Kinetics, which is a geotechnical BIM tool. And you'll be able to see that I'll be able to generate various strata of soil and create solids from that. And again, from a visualization perspective, if you wanted to then take that into 3ds Max and show those various strata as different materials, it would be very easy to do. For now, I'm just going to set a vertical definition depth of 10 feet, and I'm just going to insert it into the new drawing and click Create Solid. And relatively quickly, you'll see that I have that same solid that I showed you earlier. Note of caution, because I'm always overzealous when I see new tools and I want to use it on the biggest, baddest data set that I can find. If you have a particularly complex surface, it will take a long time, and it will generate a large number of triangles, which may be prohibitive in the sense that the specifications for your computer may not deal with it well. So just bear that in mind. And if you are going to produce these large surfaces, you may want to use some of the built-in surface tools that enable you to, let me go ahead and grab my surface, enable you to go ahead and simplify the data. Let me go to Edit Surface. Allow you to simplify the data before you go in there, because again, as engineers, we probably want everything to 4 decimal places, but for a solid of this fashion and for the purposes which you probably would want to use it for, which is visualization, you have a little bit of leeway with how exactly representative that solid is to the actual surface. All right, so just bear that in mind. I will go one step further with this model, since I'm already here, in saying that you can export out this information now to IFC as well. So you'll see that I have the ability to go ahead and export out a IFC file. This is brand new to 2016 as well, and it gets covered later on in one of the slides, but since I'm here, I wanted to go ahead and just point that out. And if I select that, you'll see that I can give this a project number, 12345, give it a name, sample, what's new, and I can go ahead and just dump this out into my desktop, maybe what's new in Civil 3D, and I'll call this sample surface.ifc, right? You can see I can bring that in, save that, export it out, and Civil 3D will think about it for a second and pump that on out. So the great thing is I can use this for any other application, since IFC is an open file format. BIM specific, but it's an open industry standard. So you can see I can, as an example, fire up Revit 2016, and I'm going to go ahead and just launch an architectural template. And as soon as that template opens, I'm going to go ahead and link that IFC that I just created on my desktop. So you'll see there's that 11:30 a.m. sample surface. Go ahead and I'll click open and let Revit do its thing. And after it processes that information, I'm going to go ahead and go into a 3D view and show you there's that solid that I brought in. All right. So again, very useful tools for interchanging of information, especially these days where building information modeling is the norm rather than the bleeding edge. Having these tools to efficiently and effectively allow the exchange of data between these different platforms is a great new feature. And then last but not least, well, I shouldn't say last but not least, next would be exclusionary catchments. Let me go ahead and close up some of these, get rid of some of the overhead that Civil 3D needs, and I'm going to go ahead and open up an exclusionary catchment example. Very straightforward. I have this surface here that I've already imported in from the land XML file, and if I were to show you this in Object Viewer, you just see it's a pretty complex surface, ripe for creating a catchment area that is representative of where water would drain from a particular area or areas. And you'll see that if I go to my Analyze tab in Civil 3D, I can go ahead and choose catchments. And again, this is not anything new, but what you'll see is if I select Create Catchment from Surface, and I choose a discharge point, so let's just say somewhere down there, you'll see that now there's a little checkbox for exclusionary catchments. So I'm going to go ahead and call this overall, maybe I'll just call this overall catchment. And I'm going to go ahead and give a name area and properties and a flow length label style for this, and I'll leave all the rest of the defaults the same. And I'll go ahead and I'll press OK. And that's not quite the catchment I wanted, so let me actually undo that. Let me actually go over here and create that. I want to include a little bit more, so let's just do this. And exclusionary, let's just type that in again, overall catchment. And toggle that to name area and properties and click OK. And now you can see that I have an overall catchment for that discharge point, right? And you can see here that it's about 30.75 acres. Now, if I wanted to create a secondary catchment area somewhere in that overall one, I can do that now in Civil 3D 2016. If I just simply relaunch the catchment from Surface, I'll go ahead and I'll choose a new point, let's say there. And I'll just call this, Section 1. Section doesn't have an R in it. So Section 1, and I'll make sure exclusionary is checked again. Once again, I'll change that to name area and properties and press OK. And now you can see that once I press Enter, I now have two different catchment areas, one with 22 acres, one with the 8 acres, right? So you can see catchment area 1 and that catchment area 2, right? So it just split that area up quite nicely, so I didn't have to do too much work on my end to create individual catchment areas for each of those sections. All right. And then last on the detailed design, I'm going to go ahead and just point out some corridor targeting. I'm going to open up a drawing, and I'm going to go ahead and corridor alignment by layer. So one of the other detailed design enhancements inside of Civil 3D, you can see here I have a very simple drawing with a corridor, a series of alignments, et cetera, all the things I would need to model. I have this alignment, I should have this polyline located here just to the right that I'd like to use as a target, but I'd first like to convert that to an alignment object so I can show you how that tool works. So I'm going to go ahead and select from the alignment dropdown, create alignment from objects. And I'm going to go ahead and select that polyline, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call this offset alignment. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a type of offset, not necessary, but just keeping within reasonable design practices. I'm going to go ahead and change that alignment layer, and I'm going to add a suffix, and I'm going to call this dash offset, right? So I can now create a layer for that alignment in particular, or all alignments that I'm going to use for targeting to have a particular suffix. Now I could call that dash target, whatever it is that you feel is the most appropriate way to name your layer. Go ahead and do so. And I'm going to go ahead and just remove a couple of the conversion options and no labels because I really don't need that for this exercise. Once I press OK, you're going to see that that polyline is now an actual alignment object, and instead of spelling offset, I put offsir, but that's the alignment I generated. Now, suppose I wanted to take that corridor and now target that edge of travel way that you see where my cursor is at that new location. Well, all I would need to do is simply select my corridor, use my contextual ribbon to edit those targets, and I'm going to select this region in particular. Now, you can see that the objects that can be targeted are shown here. Since this alignment does go from the top to down, right, so upstation is towards the bottom of the screen, the physical right-hand side of the screen is actually the left lane. So I'm going to go ahead and target that width. And you can see that nothing new here, right? The ability to select objects types to target, whether they be alignments or feature line survey figures and polylines is available. However, what is new with the alignments is rather than have to select the alignments directly from a list or by choosing them from the drawing, you can now select it by layer. So you can see that I can now choose that icon right there and simply select C-Road Target as my layer name. However many entities were in here, I would be able to target effectively. So if you create a series of alignments and put them all on that layer, it makes targeting inside of Civil 3D a lot easier. I'll go ahead and I'll press OK, and I'll go ahead and press Add, and you'll see that there's my offset alignment. And when I go ahead and I press OK again, I have it set to rebuild automatically, and you'll see that the corridor extended the edge of travel way to that new location. All right. So very effective way to work, makes things a little bit easier, especially if you're doing large subdivision jobs or large or jobs with a large amount of corridors. All right. So let's go back quickly to the PowerPoint slide, and we're actually on the end of this. I'll go over to the next slide. Just a couple of production drafting enhancements. You'll see that now with some of the annotation, users can now label locations and profile views where pipes and pressure pipes cross an alignment. So you'll be able to see the top and bottom elevations at those crossings, as well as being able to control the direction of cross sections. So this is particularly useful if you've ever been doing any amount of flood analysis inside of Civil 3D, either using the Army Corps of Engineer tools or using the river and flood analysis tools that come as part of your subscription advantage packs inside of Civil 3D. So essentially, when you're plotting sections of river, sometimes the left bank needs to appear on the left side rather than just the way the alignment is oriented. So the ability to flip those is brand new in Civil 3D. So to give you an example of those two, let's go ahead and go back into Civil 3D. I'm going to go ahead and close Revit because I don't need that for the time being. Let me go ahead and go inside of Civil 3D, close this drawing, and open up an example of crossing pipes. And there it is. And again, nothing really too crazy here. Let me go ahead and just delete these labels. You can see I set up a drawing just for the sake of time where I have a corridor, I have some surfaces, I have a series of pipes that are crossing, and they're based on the alignment of where that that roadway is, right? So what I'm going to do is just delete that from the view, and you're going to see that I can just simply, and again, this isn't really the new part, I can simply select the pipe and choose from the right-click shortcut menu, draw parts in profile view, and then choose to show that in that view. You can see it shows the pipe in its entirety, right? So I would typically want to go to my profile view properties. Let me drag that over. And for network 2, I want to toggle that to a crossing override style, right? So I can see that pipe as it is. And now what is new is the ability to go ahead and add a label to that pipe. And you'll see that if I go to my pipe network labels, and I go ahead and I choose single part profile just to be as succinct as possible, you'll see that now you have the ability to add these crossing pipe label styles, right? So there's one that comes out of the box in Civil 3D. Of course, you can customize it to your needs, but it essentially allows you to go ahead and add some new, let me drag this over, crossing pipe information, right? If I bring up my properties, you can see all those new crossing pipe properties that you can add inside of Civil 3D. right? So the one that comes out of the box, if I were to go ahead and just add that to my drawing, you can see there that it labels the top and bottom elevations for the pipe as it crosses. Now, bear in mind, this is crossing not at where the pipes are crossing, but just where it's crossing the alignment, all right? So if you had a center line alignment along that other network, you'd be able to see the exact location of the pipes at that location. To show you that this is dynamic, as you could probably well imagine inside of Civil 3D, all I'm going to do is drop that pipe, and you can see that the information updates automatically. All right, so that's one of the new production drafting enhancements. The other is the ability to create or swap out the cross-section views, right? So didn't create a brand new drawing specifically for that. I wanted to do that on the fly because it's very straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this drawing that I already have open. Let me display order sent to back and grab the alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw in a couple of sample lines in this alignment. And I'm going to go ahead and just maybe do one at station 550. And I'll go minus 100, positive 100, and oops. There's my section. I'm going to go ahead and just draw in a quick section view, right? Just drop that in. Again, taking all the defaults into place. Right, not really worried about the fact that the labels are kind of everywhere. But what you'll see is now part of my section view style, and let me drag that over, is the ability to swap out that section view direction. So either left to right or right to left, and you can see that it will flip everything automatically for you. All right, so again, nothing mind-blowing, but very useful tool for a large number of people who require the ability to flip that cross-section without having to reverse the alignment and jump through hoops to get the section views to look the way that they want. All right. And then last but not least, we have one more slide, and if I take a quick look at the time, I see it's about 11:45, which is perfect. I only have a handful of things to talk about. Some data exchange and project management. This will, for some of these, will just be via this slide because I don't have Vault set up on my machine currently to show you some of the features, but I'll talk about it. But if we just go through these bullets one at a time, some of the abilities to data exchange between Autodesk Civil 3D and Autodesk Infoworks 360 have been enhanced. Great new tool. I will show you a little bit of it today, but since I will be doing the Infoworks 360 webinar next week as well, you'll see me interface with this particular tool a lot more. The ability to import and export out AutoCAD IFC files, Industry Foundation class, you saw me do earlier. Some of the new data shortcut management tools, which allow you to go ahead and either repair your data shortcuts via a new interface, or to even more importantly, be able to swap out a particular data shortcut with another. So think of phasing, right? Phase 1 of a project may include just the existing, but Phase 2 may include existing and what was designed in Phase 1. So the ability to swap out a surface that represents existing and Phase 1 surface information is now a new ability, and I'll show you how that works in Civil. And then last but not least, some new project organization tools for Vault Professional 2016, obviously integrated with Civil 3D. Two new things that customers have been asking for a while. One of them is the ability to organize project objects within subfolders by using Vault. You'll see that if, for example, if your project is broken up into phases similar to the example I gave you before, such as say Phase 1, Phase 2, you can create subfolders under, let's say, a surface object in the Prospector tab and have separate surfaces for that phase inside of Vault. All right. Those of you who may have questions regarding that, I won't be doing that as a live demo, but go ahead and shoot me an email or ask a question in the questions panel, and then I'll make a list of the individuals who want to see that and maybe put together a quick video on our YouTube channel showing you how that works. And then the second new addition to or enhancement to Vault is the ability to create reference objects from any project. So not just the active project that the drawing may be associated with, right? So pretty powerful things if you're using Vault effectively. Now, I'll do a very quick demo of what the first 3 bullets are, and I'm going to just jump to Civil 3D very quickly, and I'm going to go ahead and fire up Infoworks in the background just to show you the data set that I worked with. And again, I very arbitrarily just chose a location in New Jersey on, I believe it was Route 3 or Route 78. And you'll see that as I launch Infoworks here, I'm going to go ahead and, actually, you know what? I did a different demo. Never mind. I had done the demo, but I didn't like the way it was coming out. I just used this bridge design demo. And you'll see that there's a bridge icon in here, or a bridge icon. There's a bridge object in this data set that spans this existing roadway. And what I wanted to do is be able to bring this into Civil 3D. Now, in previous iterations of Civil 3D, you were relegated to using IMX format to exchange data between the two. What I've done instead is use the new tool, which is the interchange with Infoworks 360. Now, I'm going to show you how that tool works, and because it takes just a few seconds to process, I'll just show you the end result. Maybe I'll run through the demo real quick. You'll see that now inside of the Insert tab, there's this Infoworks 360, and you have the ability to actually open up an Infoworks 360 model. So you'll see that this interface allows me to select the Infoworks 360 model and either choose to bring in the entire model or simply specify a selection area, and then go one step further and just say what object you'd like to bring in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this live, and if it takes too long, then I'm just going to just show you the finished product. Starting off a brand new model, I'm going to go ahead and go to Infoworks and take a look at the, actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to actually look at my model properties, and I want to take a quick look at the perfect, LL84, right? So I'm going to go back into Civil 3D, and I don't need to do too much of that other than opening up a new drawing, go to my Insert tab, select Infoworks 360, and choose Infoworks Model. I'm going to go ahead and open up to my Infoworks Model, specifically the SQLite file, right? So you can see here, bridgedesign.SQLite. I'll go ahead and I'll press Open. I'm going to go ahead and then select a coordinate system, which should be LL84. Let me go ahead and, should have done that beforehand. Edit drawing settings. Let's go ahead and set that to LL84. So Infoworks doesn't bark at me. And once again, choose bridgedesign.SQLite. And now you can see here, well, isn't that lovely? Anyways, I've somehow screwed up my my coordinate system. So let me just go and show you. Typically, when you'd select that, you'd be able to select an area of interest. Let me just try again in this file, right? I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything that's in here, because I had set another coordinate system, though it was incorrect, but whatever. I'm looking to just show you how the tool works, not be precise. And you can see here I sent it to a Trans-Mercator system. Who knows? Not sure why all of a sudden now it's being finicky. In any regards, I would typically be able to select the Infoworks model. What it would do inside of Civil 3D is it would actually use the geolocation tools to go ahead and find that location. And if I go and I just bring that up real quick, you'd see here, let's let Civil 3D load that file. You'd see that if I turn on that aerial map, if I recall correctly, everything was falling into place correctly, right? So there's my aerial map. And when I brought it in via the insert, it would have allowed me to select the area based on this location. So you don't then have to choose anything that you don't want. And you also have the ability to refine your selection set. So suppose you only wanted to bring in proposed or existing. So those of you who feel like seeing some of this in detail, I'll make sure to straighten out this coordinate system issue in next week's Infoworks 360 webinar. But the end result is all the data that you see in here. And if I turn off the geolocation so that we can see the rest, you can see that that bridge model information was brought in as solid geometry inside of here, which can be easily projected using the profile, project objects to profile view, right? So really good stuff for really quick design work and, doing clearance calculations, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as far as the other bullet goes, the data shortcut management tools. Let me show you that quickly, and then I have only one other thing to show you, and then we're done for the day. So I'm going to go ahead and just close that up. And I'm going to open up one more drawing, the last one on the list. And in this drawing, I just want to show you a couple of things. I have my data shortcuts project that I created called Create Data Shortcuts, What's New in Civil 3D 2016. Brand new feature. What I'm going to go ahead and do is, let me just remove these. Make sure that that's set to there. One of the nice things about, and if I especially create a brand new drawing just to show you this, one of the nice things that's sort of, it wasn't really documented very like highly, meaning that it wasn't like, hey, a brand new feature, is the ability to now actually create references without saving your drawing. So you can see I just created this new surface. All I have to do is create data shortcuts, and I just lied. You have to have the drawing saved once. Let me just save this here. And you can now do other things. Let's just draw a quick polyline, and you can create the reference without now needing an additional save. So if you remember before in earlier versions of Civil 3D, even if you just panned and zoom extended, even if the drawing was saved, it would make you save again before adding the data. Now you can add it directly without that save. All this to say, if I go back to the other drawing, that I have a series of surfaces, right? I have EG, which is this surface here. I have FG, which is that surface there, and then I created a phase 2, which was a composite of the two. So suppose I had a series of drawings that were created from scratch, and suppose that they referenced in drawing EG, right? I'm going to go ahead and create that reference, and I'm going to go ahead and then save that drawing to my What's New folder. I'll go ahead and I'll call this sample.dwg, right? So suppose I was working in existing, but now I want my existing to become my phase 2 surface, right? I can go over to my Manage tab, and you'll see that now there's this Manage Data Shortcuts folder, which allows me to not only repair data shortcuts that are broken, but allows me to replace a drawing object with another data shortcut by using this link tool. So suppose I wanted to go in here and say that drawing EG, or surface EG, which was my existing surface at the time I created the drawing, should now really be replaced by phase 2, which was the existing and proposed combined. I can now select EG and select phase 2 and choose that link, and you can see that that surface has now been updated to reflect what that surface object is, right? So EG is still there, but it now links over to the other object. So extremely powerful. Now, last but not least, we're done with the slide deck, right? I mentioned a couple of things that were part of Vault, but I don't have a demo for Vault at the moment. So if you, like I said, if you'd like to see a little bit more about Vault, just shoot me a quick question via the Q&A section, and I'll go ahead and I'll create a video for you guys and post it on YouTube. But what I did want to show you, because we have a few minutes left, is some of the new features within Civil 3D via the modules. Now, again, I see a few hands are raised. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unclick those if you have a moment, and then I'm going to ask you a new question. And the new question is, how many of you are actively using the Geotechnical module inside of Civil 3D? I'm going to bring up my attendees list and just see here if I can spot some hands raised. Let's see, a handful. Okay, very small amount. I would expect that unless you do a heavy amount of geotechnical work, you may not be working on this. But what I did just want to quickly give you a demo of, in the last 5 minutes we have, is Whole Base SI Kinetics, by Kinetics, the developer who we've recently partnered with. And if you're interested in all in seeing an extended demo, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to coordinate a demo for you with Kinetics that shows you not only how the geotechnical module works inside of Civil 3D, but specifically how the Whole Base SI interface works, as well as the tools that make up that tool set. So you can see here very quickly, I'm in Whole Base SI, and because I only have 5 minutes, I fired up a sample project that comes with it. It's a location located in England. And you can see here that for this my sample project, I have an interactive map where I can see all my different borings, and I have all my project-related information for that site. Now, I won't go into too much detail about the information that's in here because this is very geotechnical specific. So if you do have questions regarding this, let me know. But more importantly, this has a plugin that works with Civil 3D. So what I'm going to go ahead and just show you is I'm going to start off a brand new drawing. And I've downloaded and installed the Geotechnical module from the Autodesk website. So if I simply go to manage.autodesk.com, right, and I go to Product Enhancements, let me go ahead and sign myself in. I'm going to go ahead and move that over. And so I can go ahead and not give away all our serial numbers, so I moved it to my second screen. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Model Enhancements, and I'm going to go ahead and just bring that back over. All right, so all I clicked was on Product Enhancements that you see located here. And you'll see that there is the Geotechnical Module 2016, which you can download for free as part of your subscription contract. Once in there, you have some tools that allow you to import in geotechnical data from various sources. If you do have whole base SI like I do, I can simply connect to the database that I have in whole base, right? Whatever projects I have. In this case, I have whole base SI test project. And you see the minute that I connect to that, it's brought in that geotechnical information directly into my drawing. Right? So if I set this to a realistic view, you can see all my boring information located in here with all the various strata of soil that are part of those borings. Now, here's where some of the cool parts come in. I can go ahead and create strata for these various sources. So suppose that I wanted to see the top and bottom of where I have glacial till, right? All I have to do is toggle those two surfaces, and they've been added to my Civil 3D drawing without any other interaction from me other than just simply selecting that. Extremely powerful for representing geotechnical building information, modeling information within a Civil 3D drawing. Here's where it gets even a little bit more fun, right? If you do want to be able to show this and visualize it effectively, you can use some of the new tools that I showed you earlier. So suppose that I wanted to go in here and simply select that surface, you'll see that I can now extract a solid from that glacial till. Now, rather than give it an arbitrary depth, I can set it to the base. So I can create a solid from the top to the bottom and just simply create solid, and you can see here that now I have that solid object. Extremely powerful, extremely easy to use, and now I can push this out to a visualization software like Infoworks, like 3ds Max, give it a style, create a cross-section of where my project is, and really show people how the soil that's located at their project site could impact their design decisions. All right? Now, again, that was sort of a 5-minute glossy overview of the way the tools work, but if you have any interest in it whatsoever, be sure to let us know, and we will be, myself and Kinetics will reach out to you, and we can set up a demo.